You know what they say, the best method of keeping the doctor away is by every day listening to this podcast. Before I continue my first ever journey through the Harry Potter series, just a few quick announcements. First, it is donation time here at Potterless. We donate $1 for every member of our team over at patreon.com/Potterless for the first episode of the month, and we pick a different charity. And at the time of recording, we have 850 patrons, meaning we'll be giving $850 to Everytown for gun safety. I know that I've donated to a similar charity, one that is actually through Everytown called Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. This is their parent organization. They do a lot of different things, especially with gun control legislation, and given the fact that America just had 2 terrible gun-related tragedies in a 24-hour span, I think that donating to this charity is incredibly timely because hopefully the money that we give can help kick something into action. I really just hope things can change because it's just getting absurd at this point. A lot of people sent me really great charity suggestions for August, but this one just really hit me hard, especially with one of the shootings being in El Paso, Texas, and I used to live in Texas. So this is the one that I think makes the most sense. If you want to learn more about this charity and what they do, you can head to everytown.org. On a happier note, I have news about my involvement at LeakyCon Dallas. I've got all the details and they added me to 3 new things. So on Friday, there will be Potterless Live. On Saturday, I will be part of Questions of the Wizarding World, the Room of Requirement. And on Sunday, I'm doing LeakyCon Pyramid with the guy who played the Toothless Walnut, Tom the Innkeeper, in the movies. I'm also doing a panel about the portraits and pictures of the Wizarding World. You know how I've asked about how those work in a million episodes of Potterless. And I'm rounding out the convention. The last thing that's happening on the main stage is Pottercastless Live, a hybrid between Potterless and Pottercast, one of the oldest and one of the newest Harry Potter podcasts together. I'm really excited. If you are going to be at LeakyCon, I hope to see you there. And if you just live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'm thinking Saturday afternoon makes the most sense for the meetup. As always, follow Potterless on social media. I'll post about everything, but I'm really excited to see some of you there. And speaking of things that make me excited, we've new patrons to welcome to the team. So shout out to Pauline M., Bree Clark, Heather Povey, Mel Curtis, Tamara Landon, Christine Menchaca, Ryan Clevens, Lauren Wainwright, James D. Powdrill, Melissa M. Dickinson, Laura Bowman, Marion Overfield, Hannah Zidlowski, Jasmine Hugo, Tom Tompkins, Megan Vranick, Allie March, Jessica Phillips, Kylie Kubash, Sabrina Balsiger, Catherine Boyd, Becca Campbell, Deborah Moltisanti, and someone who made their name Harry Potter Went to Arizona State, which is a joke of my other podcast, Horse. A correction for Allie Huser, who wanted her patron shoutout to go to her brother Will, a pronunciation correction for Jaden Allman, shoutout to May Farrell, who upgraded their pledge, and a huge shoutout to Zephyr Lawrence and Artemis Peters, our newest producer-level patrons. They joined the ranks of Vicky, Aaron, Jesse, Natalie, Clow, Frank Marchismo, Samantha, Juan, Abid, Rosemary, Maria Lisa, Romina, Kumail, Russell, Audra, Eleanor, Sydney, Roseanne, Nikita, Taylor, Ali, Amelia, Sean, Sarah, Ben, Rachel, Zachary, Orchid, Vivian, Takari, Haley, Moster, Angelina, Ross Marie, Alex, Brian, Caitlin, Grace, Raul, Ingen, Mari, Alex, John, Noel, Tao, Emily, Robin, Will, Liz, Mariah, Brandon, Sarah, Claire, Gloria, Sarah, Patrick, Alicat, Hallie, Veronica, Kevin, Lotta, Noah, Tracy, Colleen, Jennifer, Friday, Ivor, Naomi, Tyler, Summer, Heather, Vera, Kerry, Andrea, Ella, Anthony, David, Elisa, Lynn, Cameron, Justin, Christine, Jacob, Toothless, Maya, Mark, Polly, Surjanetta, Tumnus, Remy, Matt, Sarah, Nona, Zena, Colleen, Harlan, Sheldorp, Noelia, Addie, Brian, Jenny, Nikki, Kara, Dorcas, Courtney, Keenay, Amanda, Sabrina, Alicia, Kafir, Lindy, Martha, Benjamin, Skymart, Sarah, Peter, Yash, Marta, Stephanie, Justine, Aaron, CJ, Eileen, Violet, Kat, Lindsay, Fielding, Keegan, Miranda, Gail, Mr. Folk, Heather, Adam, Christina, Maya, Zachary, Kieran, Heaven, Callahan, Christy, Lily, Wire Warrior, Floor, Siri, Georgia, Vile, Itzel, Mitch, Al, Topher, Peter, Candy, Skyla, Edel, Kelsey, Ellie, Professor Threat, Kelly, Aluban, Maleo, Lena, Daniel, Rebecca, Lee, Elizabeth, Abby, Lika, Michael, Earmuffs, Cara, Tiffany, Kelly, Nadia, Andrea, Courtney, Sparkle Cat, Carrie, Jamie, Lissy, Camilo, Connie, Janet, Mary, Imo, Malin, Anastasia, Jaden, Nedry, Matt, Riley, Will, and Can't I Potter, who never forget to put suntan lotion on their chest when floating the river in Texas. If you want to be like one of these patrons and get access to exclusive live streams, discount on the merchandise, my notes, bonus episodes, you can head on over to patreon.com/Potterless. But without further ado, let's get into episode 87 of Potterless, covering chapter 35 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, guest starring Jeffrey Cranor of Welcome to Night Vale. Hello, Internet, and welcome back to another episode of Potterless, the tale of a grown man reading a bunch of children's novels for the very first time. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm that grown man, and I'm here joined by a good podcast boy that I love to see at conventions and in real life, and now we're here live in the Multitudio, New York City. Jeffrey Cranor, one of the creators of Welcome to Night Vale. Jeffrey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Nice. still scratching my head from reading chapter 35.
Uh-huh.
It was called King's Cross, and I was like, interesting. I didn't think they'd be going back to King's Cross already. Not really King's Cross.
No. Well, it's funny that I started reading this last night and finished this chapter this morning, and I'm actually in New York City because I'm flying out tonight to go to a podcast conference in London.
Oh.
So I will be staying basically at the hotel next to King's Cross, so I can go check for the things mentioned in this chapter.
In real King's Cross, did they have like a Harry Potter, like an homage to it?
Oh, they do.
Like, did they have like a 9 3/4 sign or something?
Well, it was the first several times I was ever in King's Cross, it was always late at night when I was trying to find night bus. And there's a sign for 9 3/4, but there's just a concrete slab on the wall.
Okay.
And I was like, this is boring. You just stand under a sign? Is that what it is? And then I was finally there in the daytime, my last trip there, and there is a line hundreds of people deep, and they've got it all. They take it down at night, obviously, because they don't want. So they've got the whole the
cart that's like
halfway through the wall, and so there's just a whole line of people that are just waiting to get their picture made next to it, and there's stanchions everywhere. I don't know if they charge you for it. I didn't get close enough to do that. I don't want to.
Is it New York City Times Square rules where you have to give the cart $1?
Yeah, that's absolutely it.
The one, I know they have it at Universal at the parks where like you go through and then they have the camera thing and one of your friends can take a video and it makes it look like you go through the brick wall, and that's very fun.
Oh, okay.
So I have a video of me like dancing through it, which is very fun.
Oh, interesting.
They should have a thing where they get like redheaded stage actors to look like the Weasleys and going through. I think that would be a fun little
that would be perfect. I wonder, couldn't see the people manning the thing, staffing it, but I wonder if they're in costume, like a Disney World type of thing. So then that way you kind of look like you're around the other wizarding kids or something getting on. I have no idea. But I will look this time for a flayed baby.
Oh, yeah. That was a fun Google journey that I went through. So yeah, let's get into chapter 35, which is not about King's Cross at all. Going into it, I was a little sad because with it being called King's Cross, because I'm pretty sure like one of the ending chapters, maybe the last chapter in book 5 is called King's Cross when they're like going home, or it's something like that. That's a thing that has happened in the books where the last chapter is them just taking the train home.
Right.
With this chapter being titled this, I was afraid that this chapter was going to be like Harry waking up immediately and then Voldemort being dead and then all the Death Eaters being scared and then everything's fine and then they leave. And I was like, this is going to be awful. Like I want a big fight between Harry and Voldemort. And the King's Cross is very different, as we learn. So Harry wakes up. He realizes that he has the sense of touch, and thus he must be alive. And then he realizes he's naked. We're like 2 sentences in, and we've got like naked Harry Potter who is in maybe heaven. I was very confused.
I do feel like it was that sentence that started the Tumblr website, basically.
So he opens his eyes and he sees mist, and it feels like he's in heaven. He doesn't have glasses on. Then he hears a strange noise. And when he hears this noise, he wishes that he had clothes, and then instantly robes appear and he puts them on. So while I was reading it out loud, I said, what is this, some sort of room of requirement? And then the very next line, narrator Harry's like, am I in the room of requirement? Which is very good. So then he goes to a large glass hall, and he determines what is making the noise is a flayed baby, which I Googled. I was like, I wonder what, at first I was like, okay, flayed baby. I thought it just meant like sprawled out. And then a couple sentences later, it says flayed baby again. I was like, okay, the word flayed must be important. So I Googled it, and it means to be without skin.
Right.
Do you know what this word means in like actual context? I've never heard anyone refer to anything as flayed before.
Yeah, I've always heard the term. I've just always thought of like to flay something is to skin it.
Okay.
Is to remove the skin from something. I mean, I'm sure it's used in chefery.
I guess.
Or something.
Bobby flay, I guess.
Bobby flay. Good God. That's
Do you
what
have
happens.
a history with Bobby Flay?
Well, that's what you get to do if you get to flay Bobby if you beat Bobby Flay.
Yeah, that's the prize.
It's very important that he never lose that competition. I guess I've seen it written before in usually in adult books mentioning flaying, even just an adult, let alone a baby.
Right.
But I guess since it never mentions it in the act of being flayed,
right, it's
just already there. That seems that's G-rated.
I guess it didn't go through the process of being flayed. It just is flayed.
It just is flayed.
I'm gonna have to keep my eyes peeled on it because I feel like every time I get chicken breasts at the grocery store, it says skinless. But it'd be very fun if it was like flayed chicken breasts. Like I feel like that's something Whole Foods would do. It's like, oh, here's your flayed chicken thighs. You're like some fancy word to say debone too. Nothing worse than buying chicken thighs that you think don't have bones in them, and then they have bones. There's probably real worse things, but...
Yeah, and it does shorten your bite for future chicken.
Yeah, very important to use fork and knife. We then move on from a baby being flayed to Dumbledore being there, which I just wrote in my notes in all caps, like, what the fuck is going on? So Harry turns to Dumbledore and says, but you're dead. And Dumbledore says, oh, yes. And Harry says, then I'm dead too? And then Dumbledore says, that is the question, isn't it? On the whole, dear boy, I think not. And I was like screaming at my book, just be direct for once in your life, Dumbledore.
Such a dick about this. Like, it's just, I've had so many different bosses in my life, and some of them were really kind of harsh people. They were very direct. And looking back, I think I may have preferred the very direct, harsh person over the person who just kind of was cryptic. I think in real life, like in books, if somebody is kind of elderly and smart seeming and cryptic, your instant idea is, oh, they're wise and I can learn a lot from them. But in real life, you meet that person, you're like, you're crazy. I'm never going to keep listening to you or follow any suggestion you have. Like, you need to tell me what you want.
Yes, I agree. I think it's a waste of time to beat around the bush and stuff. This has gotten me into trouble because I grew up in New Jersey, which is you tell people how you feel, and it's very clear, like, hi, Richard, I don't like you. Like, and here is why. And if this means we're not going to be friends, fine. And if we improve on this, great. It's just like very direct, which I like. And then I moved to Texas, which has Southern hospitality, which doesn't actually mean people are nice. It means people pretend to be nice, and then they're mean behind your back. And Brandon, who is producing the podcast, sitting behind me, we had a conversation about this in Tennessee with one of our Uber drivers about how, like, there will be people who, like, offer you, like, oh, would you like another round of drinks, which apparently is like code for get out of my house, please, which is just all this like wild stuff. People in Texas thought I was a monster. People thought I was so mean just because I was like direct with my feelings, and it was really bad.
New Jersey is the direct state, I believe. But it makes me think of, not to sidetrack too much, but the Adol Rafai was telling me this story a year or so ago about the demeanor in the Midwest about the whole offering drinks thing. He was like, growing up near Chicago, if you go to a friend's house and their mom comes in and is like, you boys want some pop? You say no. You always say no. And the idea is that you say no, and then they were like, are you sure? And you're like, no, I'm fine. And they're like, well, I'm going to the kitchen anyway. And then you say, you know what, I will have one, thank you. It's how you do it. And he was like, I went to a friend's house one time, his mom came in, he's like, you boys want some pop? And I was like, no, I'm fine. And then she just walked off. And I was like, what? I'm thirsty, I want a pop.
I don't process it, and it's hard, and I need to do better about it in my life. But I don't know. I just want things to be direct. I worked my previous job when I worked at a digital marketing agency. The CEO was the most transparent person ever. And his whole big thing, our core value of the company, was transparency. We would have monthly meetings called biggest weakness meetings, where like the higher up people would get in front of the whole office, like 100 people, big open floor, startup-y office. They would select a couple people, they would get up, and then people would just raise their hands and tell them like what they're not good at.
Whoa.
Wild. Absolutely wild, ridiculous that it happened, but it was the most effective thing ever. It was so incredibly effective. There's this one dude who I had a problem with since it was an open floor office. He would just like come to your table and like talk to you about stuff. And it was like, my dude, I want to help you, but I'm working on something. Can you just like, and I raised my hand and told him, I was like, yo, it's totally fine. Happy to help you out on stuff. Just like either shoot me an email or a Slack message that's just like, hey, want to talk to you about this when you have a chance. And then I'll either say, come over or whatever, or like, give me 10 minutes. Raised my hand, told him that, and then a couple people, when I said it, like you could hear them mumble like, oh yeah, he does do that a lot. And then he never did it from then on, and everything was so much better. He would send little Slack messages like, hey, want to talk to you about this campaign? Tight, come on through.
Yeah.
So wild that the meeting happened, and I can see how so many people would be uncomfortable with it, but it was so effective.
Right. That directness helps a lot. Yeah, the haziness of of Dumbledore's message, it makes for really interesting reading, because really what he is he's the author withholding information from you, the reader.
Yes.
His personality is just a device.
So that you have plot twists and big reveals at the end.
Yeah, this is the same thing. It's like one of those automated pet feeders. You can't just leave out a giant tub of food. They're not going to ration their food while you're out of town. So you have to dole it out, and that's what he is. He's a robotic pet feeder of information.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, I understand why he did it during the books, not only just as a plot device, but also he was very intentional to not tell Harry about the Horcruxes so Harry didn't know he was one and then get all depressed about it. Or he didn't tell him about the Hallows so that Harry wouldn't foolishly seek after them. And they have a conversation about that here. But we have the whole chapter where Harry learns all of Dumbledore's stuff. And we would assume that this ghostly Dumbledore read that chapter or saw Harry do these things. So I don't get what the point of him being coy at this point is.
That's a great point.
And Dumbledore even feels bad about being coy and has done that multiple times before. It's like, at least when we're in this weird dreamscape, just be direct. Maybe because this is all taking place in Harry's brain, Harry's depiction of Dumbledore is like, well, in this Dumbledore I've created in my mind, he can't be direct.
Yeah.
Like, he has to still be on his bullshit of like, what do you think is happening, Harry?
He's a psychiatrist is what he is. Well, how did it make you feel?
What do you think we are?
No, you're totally right, because at that point, really what Dumbledore's saying by kind of eluding the question is, I don't know. You just can't say, honestly, I don't know.
Right. And he gets there eventually, but it's like, you could have just told me this first. Just be like, I don't know where we are, Harry. Yeah. How's it going? So I'm very frustrated with his being coy, and Harry is persistent. He keeps asking Dumbledore what is going on. I like that the first thing that Harry says, he just goes, explain, which is very good. Harry cutting straight to the chase. Dumbledore keeps saying things like, oh, you know Harry, and I think you know Harry, and all of this stuff. So what we learn from all of this, which this is like a page condensed into a sentence, is that Harry let Voldemort kill him. The part of Voldemort's soul that was inside of Harry is what is dead. Harry was able to live because Voldemort took Harry's blood in book 4 when he came back to life, meaning that Lily's protection is in both of them, which I find to be incredibly specific, but also like a great nugget of detail where I, reading it, was of the same mind of Voldemort. I was like, oh, this is like some power trip thing where he thinks it's special for him to use his blood, blah, blah, blah. But like, it actually comes back to bite him in the ass. Like, if he didn't do this, his whole plan would have worked.
Yeah.
If he had just used anyone else's blood, he would have been fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Just anyone's. It's because it's the arrogance, right? Like, because his pride.
His hubris.
His hubris. That's right.
Is that the right use of it?
That's perfect.
Sweet. Yeah. Mrs. Woodman, my 8th grade English teacher, will be so stoked.
I still don't fully follow all of that logic, even hearing you explain it even more tersely and I think succinctly. It's more succinctly and accurately than maybe I get from the reread of the book, but I don't. There's something about, like, I'm not entirely sure how the blood flow leads to, all of that.
I was confused about it. I was in the same spot as you until Dumbledore explains a little bit later about the wand thing.
Okay.
So what Dumbledore goes on to explain is that when he came back to life, because he used Harry's blood, he doubled or at least strengthened the bond between them. Because, it wouldn't make sense to say like, oh, because Voldemort has Harry's blood and thus Lily's charm in him, therefore Harry can't die. Like, it doesn't seem like anything extra was done to Harry. So I think what it comes down to is that the link between them was further strengthened. So it's kind of, by more of Harry being in Voldemort, that connection is stronger. So I guess Voldemort can't purely kill Harry, because then he would be killing himself. But then I just want to know why. I want to know why the Horcrux aspect of Harry's soul is what breaks and not Harry. Because the other things that we've learned about Horcruxes is that when the container breaks, the Horcrux inside then dies because it has nothing to be within. Yeah. So like when they shank the book, the Horcrux dies because the container has been destroyed. Same thing with the cup and the locket and the ring or whatever. It's always the thing getting destroyed. So it's not like Harry has been completely destroyed, unless it's something where it's like Harry is destroyed, and that's where now he's in this dreamscape, and then Voldemort's Horcrux goes away, and then Harry gets, like, why does Harry get to go back in his body after? That's what I don't get. And is it, and maybe this is it, maybe it's because Lily's protection now being in Voldemort is kind of, it's Horcrux adjacent, where like there's still a part of Harry's soul living in someone, so he's able to go back into his body, kind of like how when Voldemort killed Harry, there was still part of his souls in the other Horcruxes, which is why he didn't completely die. So maybe Harry is like living on in Voldemort through his blood. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone on Twitter will have better explanations for me.
But then I'm sort of interested in the idea of the body dying, but the human not dying.
Right.
Because now I sort of do want more about, like, I want a Larry McMurtry style sequel to this.
What's Larry McMurtry?
Larry McMurtry is the writer of, he's kind of like new Western writer.
Okay.
Wrote Lonesome Dove, and he also wrote Terms of Endearment.
Okay.
But he wrote a book of essays a couple of decades ago that I read called Walter Benjamin at the Dairy Queen. And it is just basically about his life, and it's sort of memoirish, and talks about reading the philosopher Walter Benjamin while sitting at the Dairy Queen in Archer City, Texas, or wherever he was living. But in that, he talks about in his older age, he had quadruple bypass surgery. Wow. And he essentially his body died, and they saved him, and then they did this quadruple bypass, and he lived. And then he just kind of talks about sort of living without a soul. Like, he's just a different person since that happened.
Oh, really?
And he knows it. He knows he's not the same person. He just realizes that he's still in this body. And it's sort of terrifying and fascinating, but he kind of treats it more like intellectual existentialism rather than actual horrified existentialism. But yeah, I think about that when phrased that way, or just the idea of when Harry dies and then he gets to go back into his body. Yeah, what happens to him in his adult life? Like, is he ever the same person? The other aspect of that, too, is that there's something weirdly, like, undead about that. Like, what damage was done to his body?
Right.
Like, if
you have to break the container, like, what happened to his body? Yeah.
Yeah, did he, like, did his liver get damaged? Did he, was it just a matter of, like, because the body doesn't just die. Something breaks down in the flow of things. Like, even if you get shot in the heart, you die because of blood loss.
Right. I guess what this is a bigger question of, like, what exactly does Avada Kedavra do? What about Avada Kedavra makes you die?
Doesn't it, like, tear open your body or something?
I'm going to Google what Avada Kedavra translates to.
Oh, no, that's something else. That's the thing he does to... Oh, yeah. Okay.
Avada Kedavra translates to I destroy as I speak.
Okay.
So it makes it interesting. But this is, I know JK said she's going to make the, like, history of magic books about the subjects or whatever that are, like, written by her,
poetry flyer.
But, like, I just want, like, a deep dive. I don't care what medium it is in, even if it's on Pottermore or an interview or something, just something where people ask, and if it's got to be me, put me in, coach. Just, if she has it in her brain, these things worked out of, like, exactly what went down. There are so many people that are still wondering this stuff however many years later. I feel like it'd be so great for her to actually be like, here's what happens, and this is why this went down. Because I don't think we're going to be able to answer this. Yeah,
I think so. And I think ultimately it probably just comes down to, like, listen, don't think too hard on it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
There's
magic.
I use this example all the time, which is, sometimes when you're reading a book or you're watching a movie or something, sometimes the ending just doesn't stick. In fact, I feel like more often than not, an ending just doesn't land right.
Game of Thrones, am I right? I've not watched it. I just have a Twitter account.
There's a thing where when I was in high school, Die Hard 2 came out.
Die Harder.
And that's the one where I'm just going to spoil it for you. It's been out 20 years or more. So at the end of this movie, it's the terrorists, and they're on a plane, and they're going to get away, and Bruce Willis has a big fight, but then he ends up getting knocked off the plane, and then they're flying the jumbo jet away. But what you realize, before he had gotten knocked off the wing, he had unscrewed the fuel cap, like it's a Honda CR-V. And he had unscrewed the fuel cap, landed on the tarmac, and there was just... as the plane is taking off, there's a trail of fuel, and he takes out his lighter and he lights it. And you see the plane's already taking off. I mean, it's already has to be well over 130 miles an hour to reach altitude. And I don't even know what the speed is, but the fire goes all the way down the tarmac and then up into the air and follows into the wing and blows the whole plane up.
That's amazing.
And my thought on that, I remember my friend Rob and I saw this together, and Rob was like, I had so much fun in the movie until that part, so I'm just going to pretend like he killed the terrorists on the plane. For the rest of my life, I'm going to tell myself he won the battle on the plane, because that was a pretty good battle. And I would have rather him just shot them both dead.
Yeah.
and then we'd be like,
crap.
fun movie.
Yeah, I think with action movies, and this is a whole nother tangent, it's hard where to draw the line versus go over, because part of that is awesome, but also part of that is terrible. And I think the John Wick franchise perfectly toes the line of hitting awesome without being too much. There's so many things that happen in those movies where you're like, if this was any more absurd, I would not like it, but it's just absurd enough where you're like, this is very cool and I'm glad this happened. But if it was turned up any more degree, I'd be like, that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. I do want to say I don't find the ending of this book to be ridiculous like Die Harder was, but there is something about like it kind of falls into that same category of like, you know, you can either accept it or not.
Sure.
It is there, or it's not. And so I just remember this happens in a lot of books. Sometimes I just get confused by a thing and I think, you know what, I'm just going to trust you that it all makes sense, because if I spend too much time on this, I'll lose my momentum.
Yeah.
It'll be like calling a timeout with 3 minutes left after you just went on a 12-2 run.
Nick Nurse, timely burn. We're recording this on June 11th, so June 10th.
I know
Listen to horse if you don't get that.
When does this episode come out?
Oh, for like 3.5 months probably. So
okay.
We will know that either the Golden State Warriors or the Toronto Raptors were NBA champions.
Well, we already know that the Raptors lost in 7 and that Kawhi signed with the Los Angeles Clippers.
If you predict this, that will be phenomenal.
And KD, after being courted very heavily at a bargain by the Dallas Mavericks, ends up signing with the Brooklyn Nets.
You think he's going to go to the Nets?
I don't.
No,
I'm just
okay,
I'm
good.
making some crazy crap
That would hurt
up.
my heart so much. Hey, editing Mike here. Guess where Kevin Durant signed? The Nets. Guess how my heart feels? Hurt, just like past Mike predicted it would. I gotta tip my hat to Jeffrey Cranor, though, correctly predicting the landing spots of the 2 biggest free agents of this NBA's offseason, though he was incorrect about who would win the title. But hey, you can't win them all, Jeffrey. Anyway, since this is not related to Harry Potter, we might as well take a break real quick to do a little bit of Wingardium Adridosa. Today's episode of Potterless is brought to you by DoorDash. Let's say hypothetically that you are in a dream state version of King's Cross and you're talking with Dumbledore and a flayed baby about what's going down, and you start to get hungry, but there's no restaurants around. You need to get food delivered to you right away. How are you going to do that? With DoorDash. DoorDash connects you to all your favorite restaurants in your city or heaven-like dream state. Ordering is super simple. Just use the DoorDash app, choose what you want to eat, and your Dasher will bring it directly to you wherever you are. DoorDash has over 310,000 fantastic restaurants from over 3,300 cities and all 50 states in the US, as well as Canada. And these restaurants range from big chain places to little dessert stores. DoorDash has gotten me out of some serious pinches where I don't have enough time to get ready for where I need to go and grab food along the way, so I can order DoorDash while I'm getting ready. The food can be delivered to me. I eat it real quick and then I go, and then I'm still probably about 15 minutes late. But without DoorDash, I would have been like an hour late, and that's just ridiculous. So you don't have to worry about dinner. Let it come to you with DoorDash. And right now, you lovely listeners can get $5 off your first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code Potterless at checkout. Again, that's $5 off your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code Potterless at checkout. Again, promo code Potterless at checkout. $5 off your order of $15 or more from DoorDash, and you can make sure that you don't get hungry while you're in the Heaven Lake King's Cross station with Dumbledore and a flayed baby today. Today's episode of Potterless is also brought to you by Calm. Let's say hypothetically that you are in a dreamlike King's Cross station with Dumbledore and a flayed baby, and this is really kind of stressing you out because you don't know where you are, you don't know if you're dead, you don't know if you're alive, and this is affecting how you sleep. That's a problem because sleep is very important. How are you going to sleep better? With Calm. Calm is the #1 app for getting good sleep. Sleep is important. When you sleep well, you're more focused, you're more relaxed, and it makes you feel generally happier. It can help your overall wellness. Sleep is huge. I don't get enough sleep. I need to make sure that I'm getting more sleep, and Calm has helped me get better sleep rather than browse my phone or watch something stressful or suspenseful on Netflix. Calm has amazing audio that can relax you, get you nice and soothed, and not only help you fall asleep faster, but have a more relaxing transition into sleep. From sleep stories to guided meditations, Calm has a lot of different things that you can listen to. They've got nice soothing raindrops in the background and sweet sounding narrators that can put you into a nice sleep. You'll find a whole library of program is designed to help you get the sleep that your brain and your body needs. And right now, you can get 25% off a Calm premium subscription if you go to calm.com/Potterless. Again, that is CALM.com/Potterless, and you'll get 25% off a Calm premium subscription. Over 40 million people have downloaded Calm. Find out why at calm.com/Potterless and get better sleep after your strange King's Cross visit today. Finally, today's episode of Potterless is brought to you by HelloFresh. Let's say hypothetically that you are in a dreamlike heaven state of King's Cross with Dumbledore and a flayed baby, and you know that when you get back from this, after you stomp Voldemort, you're gonna be really hungry, and you want to cook food, but you don't want to deal with going to the grocery store and all of that. How are you gonna help yourself out? With HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you can say goodbye to endless grocery store trips and take out food. HelloFresh has got you covered. You can place an order for a box, set the delivery date, and make sure that that box is at your doorstep exactly when you're ready for it. Take it into the house, start cooking, and have some delicious home-cooked meals right then and there. You can break out of your dinner rut because there are over 17 seasonal, chef-curated recipes each week with HelloFresh. And with these recipes, there's something for everyone. There's family recipes, there's calorie-smart ones, vegetarian, Hall of Fame, craft burgers, all sorts of stuff for you to cook. And HelloFresh is incredibly flexible. You can add extras to your order, like a side of garlic bread or cookie dough. Spice it up a little bit. In my most recent HelloFresh box, I made crispy Parmesan chicken with a side of couscous and lemon carrots. Let me tell you, this was delicious. And I make breaded chicken a lot, so it was nice to have different ingredients to switch it up a little bit so I didn't feel like I was just making the same chicken over and over and over again. And if this sounds up your alley, you're in luck because you can get $80 off your first month of HelloFresh if you go to hellofresh.com/Potterless80 and enter promo code Potterless80. Again, you'll get $80 off your first month of HelloFresh if you go to hellofresh.com/Potterless80 and enter promo code Potterless80 at checkout. That's the equivalent of getting 8 free meals. That's fantastic. Again, hellofresh.com/Potterless80 and enter Potterless80 at checkout so you can get some fresh food delivered to your door for cheap today. Okay, anyway, Harry Potter. So Harry is confused because he thought that they would both have to die, going back to the whole prophecy thing, but it seems as if they are both living. Harry asks again if they can help the baby, and Dumbledore says there's nothing they can do. And Harry then says, then explain more, which I love this. I love Harry just... I've always harped on Harry not asking enough questions and not being direct enough, and people have rightfully pointed out that his upbringing, he was told not to ask questions.
Sure.
So I'm glad that he has now matured to the point, and now having seen the whole Snape Dumbledore flashback, knowing Dumbledore's bullshit, he's just like, all right, I just have to ask this guy to tell me more things.
He's
That's
moved from Texas to New Jersey. Yeah.
I love it. So Dumbledore goes on this whole big soliloquy about how Voldemort didn't plan to make Harry a Horcrux, and how Voldemort's soul was made so unstable by all of his actions, and how he didn't respect other powerful forms of magic, such as house elves, and love, and loyalty, and innocence. And then he also says children's tales, which he's referring to the Hallows, right? He's not saying like, oh, Humpty Dumpty is a form of love.
Right, yeah. He's referring to the original Grimm. Yeah.
Okay, good. I was a bit confused. I was like, yeah, these things all have really powerful magic, and there's like children's tales. I was like, okay, interesting choice. Then Dumbledore explains the whole Voldemort taking the blood thing. His intention was to take Harry's blood to make him stronger, but instead it kept Lily's sacrifice alive in both of them. When Harry asks if Dumbledore knew this all along, Dumbledore says, quote, I guessed, but my guesses have usually been good, which I absolutely love. That is
really
so good.
Amazing. It's really, truly amazing.
And he's
so
not wrong. Like, where's the lie?
That's right.
He's been pretty good.
Yeah, I like that description of him holding out his arms going, where's the lie?
So Harry insists that there is more, and he continues to ask questions, which is great. He asks why his wand broke the one that Voldemort borrowed. And Dumbledore says he isn't sure. Harry then says, have a guess then, which he's gone from just being direct, to throwing shade and sassy. I like that even in heaven, sassy Harry still persists. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Dumbledore's theory is that when Voldemort came back to life and used Harry's blood to do so, that he doubled the bond between them, because you have Harry inside Voldemort via blood and Voldemort inside Harry via the Horcrux. Dumbledore adds that Voldemort never knew that his wand was a twin of Harry's until he kidnapped Ollivander. Dumbledore explains that the gold flame coming out of Harry's wand against Voldemort is the core of Harry's wand sensing Voldemort because they have that connection, and then sort of using his own magic against Voldemort, you know, knowing that he's like a owner or at least has a connection to this wand, and he can tell that Voldemort is using a different wand. So I don't know if that's like the core being mad bad. Like it's like Voldemort's cheating on the core of the wand by using some other wand, so it shoots out a big flame of gold in anger and jealousy or whatever. But it's something about the connection of why that happened, and it just did an outburst of magic against Voldemort, against Harry's will. Dumbledore then goes on to clarify about Harry's wand. Otherwise, it was a wand like any other, ... Though a good one, I'm sure, trying to like make a nice save at the end to not just dunk on Harry's wand, which is very fun. Harry says that Voldemort killed him with Dumbledore's wand. Dumbledore corrects him that Voldemort failed to kill you with my wand. Dumbledore can't help but be cheeky at any time, any excuse that he can.
This is very beautiful mind here, like the newspaper up on the wall, and we've gotten thumbtacks and yarn and everything, stringing all of this together. It still is very much like I think I get it, but not that I could re-explain it in any way. But as you're telling me all this, it is funny like how wordy this chapter is for just Dumbledore talking. Yes. And it is the classic trope of the Bond villain. He has Bond tied up, and then he tells him his master plan.
Right.
And this is the reverse of that, because Dumbledore is actually the paternal figure. So it's dead dad ghost basically explaining how everything's going to turn out. So it's a really interesting thing. It's a whole chapter of just Dumbledore talking.
Yeah, it's basically Dumbledore explains what happened.
Yeah, did you see The Leftovers?
I did not. I know the general plot.
I love The Leftovers. It's amazing. But there is a very, very, very long scene near the end that is just a shot of a person talking. Ooh. I think it's amazingly done. I hated it the first time I saw it, and then I rewatched it, and I was like, oh, I get what they're doing, and this is actually amazing when I sit and think about it. There's something about, I sort of thought about The Leftovers in this chapter, too, because there's a lot of fact, and there's a lot of plot, and there's a lot of explanation that has to be done to draw all these things together. But at the heart of it, like, I do sort of like that it's unclear slightly, and we'll talk more about the baby in a second, but
I have no idea what the hell that is.
But there's some visuals that don't quite connect, right? Like the way it's described, it's not maybe King's Cross, it's something that's a dream state sort of thing, but it probably, even though she doesn't do a lot of describing of, not that I could describe King's Cross Station to you, but it doesn't sound like the actual description of it, except other components, maybe the flashes of that. So there's something interesting about the dream logic there, and the idea that this could all be conceived of by Harry, but maybe it's not, and it's probably best that we don't know.
Right.
Religion is not fun if you have to explain it with fact.
Yeah. I think that's the point of it, is that it is vague, and at the end of the day, these are books about kids that do magic, so it can be whatever you interpret it to be. And I get caught of this, like wanting to know the explanation of everything, because I was an engineer, and I like knowing how things work and all of that. So I've had to stop myself a few times to be like, take it easy. It's kids' books about magic. The one thing that you did say that like I realized while reading it, the times I really could tell how much Dumbledore is talking is that a few of the pages are just an entire page where it's only Dumbledore talking, and there's not even things like Dumbledore said or Dumbledore continued, and you just keep having a new paragraph and then an indent and a quote, and you have to keep doing the mental gymnastics of like reading a couple words and then being like, oh, this is still Dumbledore talking and not Harry replying.
He's still
like,
going.
The way it is structured, you're like, oh, this looks like someone replying like the way you would do dialogue in a in a paragraph format. But then a sentence in, you're like, this is too smart to be Harry. Oh, it's Dumbledore still talking. A lot of this was just him explaining, which like you have to do because it's complex. And that's what makes the books interesting, is that the narrator, which I'm still confused about if it is 100% Harry or whatever, for the most part, the narrator mainly knows what Harry knows. So when Harry is in the dark, you're in the dark. So you then have to learn stuff at the same time as Harry. And it makes it a little like played out where you have to have these like very explanative, like you have a whole chapter where Snape is like, let me explain to you why I'm not a dick. Like here's the whole thing. So you have to have a lot of these like big old explanation chapters. I still think it was very well done.
Yeah.
But yes, a lot of Dumbledore being like, hello, here's what just happened. How's it going? So Harry asks where they are, and Dumbledore says, I was going to ask you, which, come on, like cut the shit. Harry says, it feels like King's Cross, except it's emptier and cleaner. And Dumbledore then laughs at him, which like at this point, I really didn't like this new Dumbledore.
No, you're rude.
Especially because I was left with a bad taste of Dumbledore in my mouth, because the last thing we've learned about Dumbledore is him basically using Harry as a pawn in his big chess game. So you kind of go into it with this thought of, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel about Dumbledore. Like, is he a good do? Did he just use Harry? Is this gross? And then now he's just very coy and then very sassy and then very dismissive. And you're like, all right, dude, like, come on. Like Harry just found out that you basically just used him to try to save the world.
Yeah.
And you didn't really give a shit about him as much as you let on. You think you could at least try to save some face with the kid.
This is such a good lesson for all 17-year-olds, though, right? is that, like, dad is not magic, that, like, dad is very human, and that dad makes a lot of choices in your life that are self-serving.
Right.
And it's hard to believe that, you know, like, I'm 44 years old, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, these are very human people.
Yeah.
In my family.
As a kid, you're just told to respect all adults and all adults are good.
Yeah.
And then you grow a little bit older and you see some stuff and you get an understanding like, oh, adults aren't automatically good. Like there are good adults and bad adults. And sometimes those bad adults are in my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is important for people of Harry's age to recognize like even the people who appear to be perfect might not be so great. Like everyone has their flaws. I think that's what makes J.K. Rowling's characters interesting, is that everyone seems to have their flaws, even if they're just fleeting, like Lupin having the brief thing where he's like, I don't want to have a kid and stuff.
Yeah.
But then he comes back to being a really great dad. So
I find that really
complex.
fascinating because as an aside, I keep referencing Dumbledore as Harry's dad, but he's his dad in like metaphorically. I mean the paternal.
Yes.
I do know.
You've read the
I don't
books.
want to get. I don't want to get TOLD.
This idiot.
He thinks Dumbledore's Harry's dad. I know he's his uncle. I know the relationships. I'm very clear on how this works.
His second cousin twice removed.
Yeah. You guys were talking on. Well, it's several episodes ago now, but you guys were talking on chapter 30 about the idea of the characters you liked.
Yes.
But then you kind of see like Lupin is much cooler than Sirius Black.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Lupin is much cooler than like Sirius Black to you.
To me now.
But if you were a kid reading this, you can see. I think Brandon brought up the idea of like the you could see as a kiddo how Sirius Black would be cool.
100%.
And also like he's another dad's surrogate for you, you know, and so I think those are really key things that I think about in going through this book too, and that moment when you realize what a shitheel Dumbledore is, or what the heel turn that Snape has in book 6, but then
comes back,
but it's not a full redemption arc either, because
really.
You realize he's a sniveling beta,
I mean,
right?
He's a 30 plus, like, a man in his 30s who still hasn't gotten over a high school crush.
Yeah, he's still stuck on that, which is actually very scary.
Yeah, it's super
scary behavior in a person.
Yeah, it's something where people will get upset with me because I'm very harsh against Snape, but when you look at the circumstances of it, the fact that it was a love that he had as a kid and in high school, and now he's a grown man, that's what makes it really weird. If it was something where they were older and they had a more deep connection, but it was just a girl that he spent a lot of time with, and he thought that made him entitled to dating her or being romantically interested, and she just didn't reciprocate. You don't get to hold that grudge until you're well into your 30s. And then even not even just picking on Harry, but like you pick on Neville and Hermione just because they're friends with Harry?
Yeah.
Like, that's so wild. Hey, editing Mike here. Since recording, a lot of people have pointed out to me that a reason that Snape might hate Neville is because he could have been the other person in the prophecy, and if Voldemort had gone after him, Lily would still be alive. I think this is a very good theory. It could be true, but regardless, Snape should not be picking on small children that he's teaching. He's a professor, and part of the job of being a professor is helping to mold students into witches and wizards. He's not doing it. It's incredibly inappropriate. This dude should have been fired like 12 different times. Anyway, back to the podcast.
At his core, he's a dick. I knew a guy in college, I'll just call him Dan, and like but I remember my roommate Anand and I just hated him so much. But I remember trying to tell Anand was really mad at him one day, just how rude he was, and I said, I do think that Dan's a little socially awkward. I don't think he fully understands what he's saying all the time.
Sure.
That it comes off as mean or rude. And Anand was like, I don't care what his intent is. Like, asshole is asshole.
Yeah.
Like, the man's an asshole.
When you get to a certain age, that isn't an excuse anymore.
Yeah.
When you're weird in high school or college and you don't know how to approach people or handle situations, that's okay. When you're a 35-year-old man, you should know how to conduct yourself. Especially if you're a teacher, you should know how to conduct yourself around kids.
Yeah. Is that how old Snape? Is that how old Snape is?
I'm pretty sure they were in their early 20s when the Potters got married. So they're like 21, 22 or something. They have Harry when let's say they're 22-ish when they have Harry. And then...
Oh, that quick, huh?
Yeah, so they're very young.
Yeah.
When they die, I think they were like 21 or 22. Whoa. And they had just had Harry. So let's assume they are 22. Then in the first book, Harry is 11. So in the very beginning of the series, Snape is 33.
Yeah.
And like now he's what? 30?
Well, no, if Snape is Lily's age,
right? 22 when Harry is born. So
Harry's 17 now in book 7, right?
So he's 40.
So he's 40. Still, that's very young.
But it's old enough to not to still be like, oh, this girl didn't like me this one time.
When I say young, not because I'm trying to say 40 is the new 20 or whatever. I just mean that I think it's
just a number.
I just got hung up on Alan Rickman playing.
The casting, wild.
Yeah.
Sirius Black being played by Gary Oldman is bonkers. He was like 48 and he's supposed to be 33 or something.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It is bonkers. It is
absolutely
super bonkers.
Absurd.
Yeah.
Hey, Editing Mike here again. It has been brought to my attention that a reason that a lot of the actors who played the Marauders, Harry's parents, etc., are older is because they really wanted Alan Rickman to play Snape, and to make that believable, they had to make everyone look the same age. I get how this could make sense, but I just don't like that they did it. First off, because Alan Rickman is great and lovable. I think he's too lovable. He's a major reason why people actually like Snape. They don't go by the books, they go by the movies. He's way more likable in the movies. They changed some stuff, and Alan Rickman's Alan Rickman. But also, you get Sirius not looking like he's supposed to, and then you lose out on the true tragic nature of the death of Harry's parents, because they were 21, 22 years old. That is so much more intense when you could see someone and think, I can't believe that these people died. They're so young. Whereas when you look at Harry's parents in the movies, you just think, oh yeah, those are adults. They lived a good life. They didn't. They lived for about 20 years. That's not a lot. And I think you miss out on that gut punchness of it by having the actors and actresses be so old. So many things. So many things. Anyway, new Dumbledore, not a fan.
No.
So Harry, a little defensively, asks, well, where do you think we are? And Dumbledore says that he doesn't know because this isn't my party, which, like, he's... is so frustrating. And I was really upset at this point. And then the narrator even says, quote, Dumbledore was being infuriating, which, yes, very accurate. So Harry brings up the Deathly Hallows. Dumbledore's tone then changes very sharply, which confuses Harry. Dumbledore starts by apologizing to Harry for not telling him about them, but he didn't want Harry to fall victim to the same temptation that he did, which makes sense. I completely support Dumbledore's reasoning for making the reveal of the Hallows in a way where they would learn about them after it was too late. I think that was incredibly smart of him to do, kept them on track for the Horcruxes. You know Harry and Ron are both going to want to go for them, so I think it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Dumbledore apologizes for not telling him about it straight up, but explains why he did so. Dumbledore then goes on to compare himself to Voldemort, though, saying that he also sought to conquer death. And Harry tries to give him the benefit of the doubt, saying that it's not the same because Dumbledore sought out the Hallows, not the Horcruxes. And Dumbledore agrees and repeats that phrase, Hallows, not Horcruxes. Harry then asks if Grindelwald was after them too, and Dumbledore says that that is what brought them together more than anything. And Dumbledore says that's what brought them together more than anything, to which I wrote in my notes, except for that ass, because J.K. Rowling had this whole they had a big, real passionate fuckfest love. But he's saying that like what really brought them together as colleagues or whatever you want to say they are is because of this shared obsession with the Hallows. Dumbledore says, quote, two clever, arrogant boys with a shared obsession. Harry asks if the story of the Deathly Hallows, like the actual fairy tale itself is true, and Dumbledore confirms that the Peverells are a real family, but the three Hallows might have just been inventions by all of them, which I think is way more interesting.
Yeah.
And I like, how do you make the invisibility cloak?
I don't even know what to even, so what fabric, do you go to Joanne? I don't know where you even go to get the material to make that.
I'm slowly compiling a list of spin-off series that I think would be more interesting than Cursed Child, which I'm seeing in 2 days.
Nice.
Yeah, so really cutting it down to the wire for finishing the books. I'm going to be reading the final chapter tomorrow and then seeing Cursed Child the day after.
Perfect.
But I feel like there are so many more interesting spin-offs / sequels / prequels they could have done. The Peverells inventing the Hallows, that would be wildly interesting.
Yeah.
That would be so much fun.
I think that would be really, really cool. I just also want to know. I would watch that HGTV program as well. Yeah. I feel like that's where we should be going with some of these, actually. I think we're doing too many spin-offs where we're like, well, let's make another film series, or let's make a comic book series, or let's make a TV show based on a movie or based on a book. Like, we should be actually building out programming for like Food Network and HGTV, like Wizard Cooking Show, but it's all canon. Like, it's all in the world of Harry Potter. I think that could be really, really interesting.
That would be awesome. Has any sort of franchise or universe done that? Because I think that would be huge.
No, I mean, I feel like somewhere along the way, somebody's probably like, especially in comics, you can get away with like a quick spoof of a thing really quickly and kind of have issues that are
classic Deadpool.
Right. Yeah. You can totally do something like that. But yeah, I do think it would be really fascinating.
I mean, BoJack Horseman kind of did this. They made an entire like Christmas special episode where it was them watching a Christmas special episode of the TV show that BoJack was on.
Right.
So that was like kind of tangential. But like, imagine if there was an MCU cooking show or like like some sort of reality show. Like they did a Bachelor thing with the X-Men. Like imagine if it was just completely all in character. This is all in canon, but it's like, what if they decided to make a show that completely adhered to the stuff, but fit this other format? That'd be so fun.
Wouldn't you watch a Top Gear style program that's Tony Stark and Peter Parker just trying out all the crazy machinery and weapons and outfits and all of that sort of thing?
Hey, Brandon, you still know people at Marvel? You still got some contacts? I think there's so many things that could happen. Oh, man, we need it. But yes, the Peverils are real. The Hallows are just inventions. I need to see it. I'm imagining like Mythbusters, except they're inventing things. So Dumbledore confirms that Ignotus, who is the cloak boy, is Harry's ancestor, and the cloak made its way all the way down the lineage eventually to get into Harry's hand. Dumbledore explains that James had shown it to Dumbledore just before James was killed by Voldemort. Dumbledore asked, "Oh, can I take a look at this and examine it?" And then shortly after, you have the whole situation where James and Lily get killed. Dumbledore starts to feel a regret for having it the night that James died.
I was going to say, that was the part that stuck out to me the moment that gets described, which is like, they could have used that.
But Harry really quickly comes to Dumbledore's defense and says, no, Voldemort knew where they were. It was going to happen no matter what. Don't beat yourself up about it. Really, this is a very good chapter for Harry for a lot of different ways. First off, he finally approaches the Dumbledore relationship correctly, where he just asks him direct questions and just keeps asking and asking and asking. Then he comes to Dumbledore's defense 2 different times where Dumbledore starts to feel bad about himself.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, no, you're fine. You didn't try to seek death in this awful way, and the cloak wouldn't have mattered. Harry doesn't have to do this. He can be angry, and he could have flipped shit on Dumbledore like, oh my God, if they would have had the cloak, like he could have done all this stuff. But we have now 2 chapters back to back where Harry is incredibly mature. And honestly, just from these past 2 chapters, my opinion of Harry has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Like through the roof. And I kind of feel bad for how much shit I gave Harry like throughout all of these episodes of Potterless. Because, I mean, he's 17. It is completely natural. And I think that this is his light bulb moment where he really grows up. I think a lot of people have moments where it all comes together at once. I had a moment like this in high school where it just all kind of clicked. And this has been Harry's moment, and he is so much more mature now, and it's awesome.
And then he knows how to talk to an adult in an adult to an adult way, which I think is a really big step when you're not either. Because I think when you're younger and you don't understand the dynamic of what it means to just that you are a person and this adult is a person, but you're 2 people. That there's always this hierarchy. You're below them somehow, so your reaction has to always be to either do what they say or to scream at them.
Yes,
to lash out or to just follow orders. And so, here's a case where he's actually having a real conversation with Dumbledore about Dumbledore's feelings.
He does a really good job. I'm very impressed with Harry, frankly. Dumbledore then goes into a big monologue about feeling bad for his past and the way that he treated his family and how he was selfish and he was bitter about having to care for his family after all of the stuff went down when his mom died and then he had to care for them, even though he had these big plans to search for the Hallows and travel the world and all this other stuff. And then in this monologue, he goes on about how much he regrets being of the same mind of Grindelwald and how his ideas caught his interest and all of that. He says that the heart of their plans was the Deathly Hallows. He reveals that the Resurrection Stone then means that you get an army of the Inferi, which seemed like an out of left field kind of thing. Was that clarified before that, like, oh, if you own this Hallow, you also can control all the zombies?
I honestly do not remember ever knowing that information at all.
It seemed very abrupt. I don't know if I just missed this or if it was said before, but I feel like that makes it way better.
Yeah.
Like that might have changed my answer when people before had asked me, what do you think the worst Hallow is? I was like, the Resurrection Stone. All you can do is see like ghost versions of people and it makes you sad. You get to control a bunch of zombies? That's a huge plus.
You get to be the Night King, basically, is what happens.
That seems like a very big pro. So he makes that revelation. And then Dumbledore moves on to the fateful fight between him and Grindelwald and Aberforth, where unfortunately Ariana gets caught in the crossfire and dies. Dumbledore does cite this moment as when his sense got knocked back into him. Aberforth came forward, calling him out on him not having his head straight, and that's what kind of opened his eyes to the whole thing. After the whole fight, Grindelwald fled and went off to find the Deathly Hallows, to seek power, and to torture Muggles. Dumbledore then reveals that afterwards, there were rumors that Grindelwald had obtained the Elder Wand, and shortly after this, Dumbledore was offered the position of Minister of Magic multiple times, but he kept turning it down because he thought he couldn't be trusted with power, which...
I liked this part, too, because Harry's like, you would have been way better than Fudge, and he's like, would I? And in my head, I'm like... You would.
Yes, I mean...
You would have been way better than Fudge.
But also, an incredibly low bar. Like,
yes, that's right.
Anyone, so many people. Arthur Weasley would have been leaps and bounds better than those two dudes.
That's right.
Not great. But yes, I don't know that Dumbledore really couldn't be trusted with power. I don't know that... I mean, I guess he's saying that his quest for power was too much, where if he was given power, he would have misused it. I guess it kind of makes sense because Dumbledore still was pretty young when all this went down. Like, he had very recently graduated from Hogwarts, so he couldn't be more than like 22-ish. So he's still a college-age kid. You can't have a college-age kid running the country.
No.
That's not a good idea, so I totally get it.
This part was really interesting to me, him talking about his history and especially his relationship to Grindelwald. And the thing that's interesting to me is that at one point in talking to Harry, and I forget the exact context in this chapter, but he uses the word muggle to describe other people in talking straight to Harry. It's not, once I said the word muggle, like he says it in the moment, which is really interesting because it's not, I don't want to like make ties to like real world social justice things.
Sure.
But there is a thing where like reading this in 2019 eyes, where we're having a lot more conversation about what it means to be a shitty white person and a white nationalist. And like, he's very like wizard nationalist in this, like in the way he describes where he's coming from,
or at least where he was.
Yeah. And I think, and again, like it was just weird rereading this now and thinking about current dialogue around that, around the site. I really don't want to be one of those people who like has to relate current day news topics to Harry Potter.
You're fine,
but it just threw me off, and I'm like, maybe if I went back and reread all these books, maybe it happens constantly, and we know all of this. But I just, in the moment, I was like, this morning reading this, I was like, whoa, hey.
There are a lot of parallels. I mean, at the core, the fifth book is a book about a corrupt government and misuse of power. No matter what side you fall on, that's happening in today's government here in the States and other places too. And if you don't believe that, I would hope you maybe watch some other news channels or read other articles. People get mad at me, a lot of one-star iTunes reviews of like, he makes this about politics so often, unnecessarily, which like, first off, it does not happen very often. But like, at the core, these books are about, a major factor is about a corrupt government in the Ministry of Magic and media that lies. And that's what's happening right now. And I try not to talk about it too much, but like, it comes up. I'm not shoehorning it in.
Yeah.
I could have made far more jokes about it if I wanted to, but I've chosen not to. And I think that it is a testament to the quality of J.K. Rowling's writing.
Yeah.
That it still holds firm today, and it can be interpreted in different ways when it came out versus now and related to it. It's not like she predicted the future or anything. It's just like, it's a common theme. Like, people get in power and then they misuse it, and you can draw parallels. And I don't think it's bad to do so.
And that's such a truism throughout history anyway. So it doesn't feel like it's that political to say like, oh, we're dealing with a corrupt government or whatever. It's sort of like lazy to be like, Trump is Voldemort.
Yeah, that's not great, because it's
Voldemort
wrong.
was so articulate. But you know what I mean? Like, there's a thing where, like, we're sort of missing there's a lot of key elements missing between the two of them. Yeah, I think it's always when you take, like, there's a contemporary news event, there's a thing where you start tying individual characters or some small storyline from book 3 or 6 or something. You're like, it's just like this, and when so-and-so did the thing. And yeah, I only brought that up only because I just thought, like, it just threw me off reading that today of when he has that story. I'm like, I forgot this entirely.
Yeah.
And it's probably because when I read it the week it came out. And so it was a thing where, like, that, it just wasn't filtering the same information.
It was at a time where everyone agreed Nazis were bad, whereas, like, apparently in the past 2 years, we have to give them their due.
Right. I mean, we just weren't having an ongoing conversation about white nationalism. Not that it didn't exist. Not that the racism didn't exist before 2016 or whatever. Like, that's not where I'm coming from at all, but it's just more in the zeitgeist now as an actual conversation. Anyway, so it just threw me off. I was like, wow, that's a whole part of him I'd forgotten completely, as to, like, there's just, like, an open admission as to how he was.
And I love that he is so open about it and transparent about it and admits that it was a dark stain and he changed.
Yeah.
And he became a bigger person. And it, much like the Lupin thing, it was like a fleeting thing. For Dumbledore, it lasted like a couple years until he kind of saw Grindelwald take it too far. And then he was like, oh, this is actually bad.
Yeah.
And then that's not who he is anymore. But regardless, no matter what, even if you're just looking at don't put a 22-year-old person in charge of the ministry, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Dumbledore thought that he would be a better fit at Hogwarts as a teacher, and he goes on to say that he feared Grindelwald, not out of death that Grindelwald was going to kill him. He's a great quote where he says, I knew that we were evenly matched. Perhaps even I was a shade more skillful.
Keyword is shade. Yeah.
That's
sure.
very good. But he was afraid of the truth. He never knew whose spell actually killed Ariana, and he was terrified of somehow learning that it was actually him, which, I mean, that's, like, real. That's super real.
It's super real. And also, and Harry doesn't want to know either, which goes back to more about this chapter, which I find really great, is that, like, I think it's fine to not know everything about everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's fine to not have all of the answers. Like, that's, in fact, it's more important that that's haunted him. Like, that's the fact we need to know, is that this is a haunting thing.
Right.
Like, if you know one way or the other, there's a closure to that information. And that's not the character building that we want here.
Yeah. Dumbledore has the correct amount of grief and regret about the situation. There's no need to further that by being like, oh, you know how you already feel like trash about this thing?
Yeah.
By the way, it was you. Like,
right.
It doesn't matter if it was his actual spell or Grindelwald's actual spell.
Yeah.
That doesn't change anything. So it's not worth investigating. Let's just use this as the tragic moment and learning point that it is.
Yeah.
And no need to make me feel even more crappy about it.
Right.
So Dumbledore delayed meeting Grindelwald again until it was absolutely necessary, when he was going far too Hitler-y and killing way too many people. Dumbledore then stomped his ass in a duel, and Harry decides not to ask if he ever found out who killed Ariana, because he doesn't want to run the risk of Dumbledore having to tell him that he did or come to grips with that fact. So yeah, you make a very good point here. So they sit in silence for a long time. Dumbledore then says that Grindelwald tried to stop Voldemort from getting the wand by saying he never had it, which we did see in those flashbacks where he was saying he never possessed it. Dumbledore says that apparently Grindelwald had remorse in his cell alone in later years in life, according to, I guess, the guards, like, told him.
Sure.
And Dumbledore says that he hopes so, which I guess is good. Give him mild redemption or something, but I don't know. I feel like he could have done more than be like, yeah, I never had it, Voldemort. I don't.
Yeah. And I mean, he's an important character in terms of the plot, but he's such a minor character in the book too. So part of me is like, I don't care.
Yeah, his name is said less times than Ludo Bagman's. So do we really need to know about him? So Harry suggests that it might have been Grindelwald not wanting Voldemort to break into Dumbledore's tomb, which I think is interesting. Like, Grindelwald's still holding on to that whatever passionate love that they had that we never see in canon stuff but gets revealed in behind the scenes interviews. So Harry asks about Dumbledore trying to use the resurrection stone, and this is when I finally realized that's why he put on the ring, because it wasn't until just now in the last chapter or the chapter before that we actually learn that the stone in that ring was the resurrection stone. Because I was very confused when we do the Snape flashback and Dumbledore put the ring on. I was like, why the fuck would he do this? He seems very out of character.
Yeah, because he just kind of talks so bleakly about, like, being seduced by the power of the ring or what have you.
Yeah, and it seems super out of character.
Yeah.
It was like, that seems out of left field. Why would he do this?
Yeah.
Now it makes so much sense. And JK's very good at this, especially in this book. There's a lot of times where I'm like, this is weird. And then 2 chapters later, I'm like, oh, which is the whole reason of the why she wrote it the way she did. So it's very fun. So yes, he tried to use the resurrection stone, which I still don't get why he put on the ring, because in the story, you're supposed to turn the stone over 3 times. It still doesn't 100% make sense to me.
Yes, is he doing, some
Does he do the single ladies dance?
He does the single ladies hand gestures. Yep, that's exactly it.
So Dumbledore says that and maybe this explains it, he just lost his mind when he finally found that particular Hallow. It was the one that he wanted most all along because he wanted to apologize to his family. But he just completely blanked on the ring itself having a Horcrux in it, and thus Voldemort putting some sort of curse on it like every other Horcrux had. Did the cup have a curse? Or the cup, did the cup have, was that the multiplying thing? Was that in the cup? Or was that just in the vault? I feel like the cup could have been a little better protected. I feel like they had a hard time destroying everything else, and the cup was kind of a walk in the park once they got it out of that vault. They're just like, oh, this big fire animal murdered it by accident.
Well, the vault, this is the Gringotts vault, right?
Yeah, where everything multiplies and becomes hot.
Right. So, I feel like that was really the challenge to that. At that point, you're just like, well, let's just make the cup kind of easy. It's just like,
the room's hard enough. We don't have to worry about the cup.
It's just a red Solo cup. It's a beer pong cup. You just step on it.
So he just completely forgot that it would have a curse on it. Dumbledore then, regrets doing it and all of that. He says that he was never worthy to unite all of the Hallows. He was only deserving of the wand, which he calls the least extraordinary, which I think is very fun, and says that he was worthy because he took it not to kill people, but solely to prevent others from using it for killing. Dumbledore says that he only took the cloak out of curiosity, so it never could have worked for him as it did for Harry, its true owner. And given the fact that Harry just used it to sneak around in the hallways, I don't know that Harry has this profound use of the cloak.
And also, the true owner is really interesting, just because it's passed down from
the family.
From the family. It's magic, I guess. That's that.
Sure.
Listen, I was going to have a question, but I just answered it myself. It's magic.
It's magic.
It all takes place at a wizarding school. Just don't worry about it.
Dumbledore says that he would have used the stone to bring back his family and apologize, but that would have also been bad because they are at peace. Which makes me find the whole stone thing very interesting. Are you just at rest in heaven, and then it's like, hey, you actually have a meeting scheduled and you need to go talk to Dumbledore? It's like, I was so comfortable. Do I really have to go down to Earth? So he goes on to say that Harry is the only one worthy of uniting all 3 Hallows. Harry asks why Dumbledore had to make it so hard to get them, and Dumbledore reiterates that he didn't want him to fall prey to those same temptations that he did going after them. And his whole plan was to have Hermione slow him down because he knew Hermione would question Harry along the way, which is great. But also, Hermione was there to save Harry's ass 12 times.
Right.
It was a bit more than just she's going to make you slower.
Right. Hermione also invented a flux capacitor, right, to cheat on tests. So it's not like she was always by the book.
Yeah, I get it. But I mean, Dumbledore's reasoning here was fine, but I think he could have given a little bit more credit to Hermione here.
Yeah.
Dumbledore says that Harry is the master of death, which feels strange to even read.
It's weird.
Because the true master does not run away from death. He understands that he must die, and there are far worse things in the world than dying, which I guess holds true because Ignotus did that with the cloak. He eventually came to the point where he welcomed death and passed his cloak on and didn't fear him. Yeah. So I guess that holds true from the actual fairy tale of the Deathly Hallows itself.
It is interesting that the couple of chapters build up to this too, of kind of dealing with it's when he sees Snape's memories in the pensive, right? He goes into the pensive, right? And he sees Snape's memories, and he kind of gets he watches Dumbledore learn he maybe has a year to live because of that ring. And Snape saying there's very little that curse is just gonna go crazy. It's I'm sorry, you have cancer of all over your body, and it's much. You may have a year. It usually doesn't. It's not much I can do, and it's really interesting because that to use the cancer thing. Cancer is a very real thing that a lot of us will have to face with ourselves or with family members, and for Harry to see that again, I do think that's one of the wonderful things about a young adult novel, of having not just the platitude of what it means to be an adult, but actually seeing what an adult has to confront.
Yeah.
And Harry has to do it at 17, whereas most of us won't really start having to think about this until it starts to get late 30s when you start losing people older than you, and you start really thinking about your own death, and you start having to have wills and things like
Harry
that.
Has to grow up real quick.
He has to grow up real fast, but I'm it's such an amazing thing to see a person embody the idea of yes, I'm ready for this. Nobody wants to die.
No.
But you have to, so want is moot. So it's really interesting that's a very seeing a character so maturely in the face of death is really fascinating there. And so for us to kind of reiterate the point of it's actually not that there are a lot worse things.
Yeah. And even more extreme is that Harry is someone that handled so many other things so immaturely that when he handles this maturely, it's oh wow, okay, this boy grew up a whole bunch.
That's right.
So Harry asks if Voldemort knew about them. Dumbledore says no, and then even if he did, he would have only cared about the wand. He would have thought that the other ones were useless. Harry asks if Dumbledore knew that Voldemort would go after the Hallows, and Dumbledore says yes, because after Voldemort got vested in Little Hangleton, which I was sure to write down for future trivia purposes only, where the whole gold flames thing happened, Voldemort first thought it was Harry's skill. But then after he learned about the twin cores thing when he kidnapped Ollivander, his course then changed where he's oh, it was just the core thing. It's not my skill. I'm fine. I just need a better wand. So then he was I got to get the Elder Wand because that's it. If I get the Immutable Wand, boom, we're all good because I am at least equal or more skilled than Harry Potter. Dumbledore's plan was for Snape to end up with the Elder Wand. The grand plan was that Voldemort would be dead and not Snape, so then Snape can have the wand and he can be master of death and make sure no one else gets it, kind of thing, or at least master of this one Hallow. So this chapter was very good of these little things that I was why did this happen? And then, oh, okay, yeah, cool. But then Harry and Dumbledore both kind of laugh about it. They're well, that didn't work out so well, did it? Snape's dead. So the baby then makes another noise, and it's decision time. Harry can either go back and fight Voldemort, who has the Elder Wand, though there is a chance that Voldemort will be dead. I sincerely hope he is not dead. I will get into my predictions when we finish, but we're very close to the end of the chapter. So Harry can either go back or he can, quote, take a train to the beyond. And Dumbledore says that Harry has far less to fear from returning than Voldemort does, which is very true. So Harry looks at this skinless baby again, and Dumbledore says, do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all, those who live without love. By returning, you may ensure that fewer souls are maimed, fewer families are torn apart. If that seems to you a worthy goal, then we say goodbye for the present. I didn't know how else to describe that quote except for just to write the whole thing.
Sure.
Because it was very profound, and I was all right.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to sound smart about it, but it's very well written and very good. And if I heard this and I was Harry, I'd be yeah, I'm gonna kick Voldemort's ass.
Yeah.
It's the perfect pep talk.
There's definitely, I don't feel the tension of a tough decision to make at the end of this chapter. I definitely
it's obvious.
Do not feel the tough decision. I do think the more challenging thing to do as a writer is to have him be you know what? I'm chill here. Me and this baby gonna go hang out. He's my new puppy. And there's not a tough decision here.
No.
Yeah.
Harry even feels that returning is easier than the decision he had to originally face to walk into the forest and face death the first time. Even though it is nice here and he's running the risk of pain and more loss, but with whether it's Dumbledore's speech or the whole situation, he decides he's going to go. So the two stand up, they look into each other's faces. Harry asks if this was real or if this was happening inside of his head. And Dumbledore says, of course this is happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean it is not real? Which I'm assuming everyone that year made that their yearbook quote when they graduated. So every single person in 2008 or whenever this book came out.
Yeah.
Everybody had to do that.
Yes. Oh man. When did this go? 2010?
I think the book when
did the book
Deathly
come out? 09?
Hallows book release 2007. 2007 is when the book came out.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So I would love to see people's class of 2007 yearbooks.
Really
if you were a class of
those.
2007, look in your yearbook and see how many people made it either that or Wit Beyond Measure is a man's greatest treasure. And then you know that person's a Ravenclaw. But that's the end of this chapter. Before we wrap it up, I want to talk about what I think will happen next because my predictions are fun, especially when they're very wrong, which I think I'm about to be. There's 3 things that can happen. 1, Harry wakes up and Voldemort is dead. Boo, boring, I don't want it. That's not fun. 2, Voldemort's alive, and then it's a situation where they have to duel, and it's like Harry was on a video game and it said 1 life left and he died, and now it says 0 lives left like it does in Crash Bandicoot, and you're oh, I actually have 1 more, the 1 counts. And now they just get to do a big high-stakes duel where there's no extra souls. Though, the reason that I'm not sure about this is because Nagini is still there. Mm-hmm. And here's what I think would be very interesting. The most fun version of the final duel, which if this is it, I will do a backflip. If the Horcrux in Harry's soul breaks, if that has to kill Voldemort because of the prophecy, the way the Horcrux works, the blood thing, whatever, and now Voldemort is in that soul thing again, he then, going by how Horcruxes have been explained to us, has to fill whatever Horcrux is remaining to get part of his soul. All that's left is Nagini. So the final duel could be Harry versus Voldemort possessing Nagini as a snake, and that would be the fucking hypest shit ever. If the final duel is not just Harry versus Voldemort, it's Harry versus Voldemort, who is a big-ass snake. I would love this, and I would freak out, and I don't think it's going to happen, but oh, it would make me so happy. It would make me so happy.
Nagini rises up and just says, "Kids don't do drugs." The end.
Oh, I would love it, because even if it comes back and what I think the more likely scenario, Voldemort's still alive and now they actually have to duel.
Yeah.
And then the prophecy gets laid out where one of them dies, one has to kill the other, etc. The big question is, like, you still have to kill Nagini. Like, who's going to kill Nagini? Because you need to do that before Voldemort can be completely vanquished. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if, like, Hagrid's the only good guy here. It's a bunch of Death Eaters, Voldemort, Hagrid, and Harry. So I don't know if, like, tied up Hagrid finds a way to, like, destroy Nagini or other people come in or what. But, like, I don't know where this next chapter is going to go. I'm really pulling for Snake Voldemort, though. But regardless, that's the end of this chapter, and that's the end of this episode of Potterless. So, Jeffrey, how do you feel about chapter 35?
I really loved it. Like, what a weird and special chapter, actually, that I got drawn to read and talk about, because it's so different from every other chapter in this book. And
incredibly.
And I think in all 7 books, actually. Like, I think it's really amazing. I think it's a very good job of, as a writer, you build up all of this lore, and now you have to explain all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And you really almost have no way around just having the device of the evil villain explaining to James Bond his plan all along.
Right.
But that's kind of what you sort of have to do, and I just thought she did it pretty elegantly.
Yes, it was very well done, because at its core, this chapter is let me explain to you what's happening, friends.
Yeah.
But it's done very well, and it's done in a very unique and interesting way, in a way that I haven't seen in this book or any other, like, I've never seen this kind of thing ever done. I guess there's the occasional, like, you go to heaven and then, like, the God character is like, let me tell you what's up. But, like, this felt less campier than that. It felt more genuine. And I think you're right that this chapter just stands out from so many, because, like, how many chapters only have 2 characters in them? This entire chapter only has Harry and Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we get a Harry able to talk to Dumbledore chapter, because I've been pining since the very beginning. Like, I was screaming for him to talk to the painting version of Dumbledore, so we can at least have something. So I guess this is it's still the same effect, but it's a more creative and interesting way.
Yeah.
And I think the vagueness of the situation and not knowing exactly what's going on is good, because it's less distracting, because basically halfway through the chapter, you just have to be like, all right, it doesn't matter what this is. We know this is some sort of weird dream sequence, and Dumbledore's going to explain stuff, and we're good. Yeah. So I thought it was very good.
Yeah,
I thought it was very fun. I don't know what the fuck that skinless baby is, though. I'm so confused. Is that supposed to be like Voldemort?
I mean,
like
in my
Harry?
head, it's. I mean, if in trying to be literal about it, like, why is it there? I think it's Voldemort's soul.
Okay. Oh,
but it's all in Harry's mind. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not in. But see, the problem I have with that is that why is his soul a flayed baby? Mm-hmm. Other than, I guess, because it's in Harry's mind. I mean, I sort of like that it's not explained, and sometimes I just would rather have something be weird than explained.
Yes.
And I liked it just being weird. So I'm sure Reddit or whoever has broken it down and explained what it all means. But I find that less interesting. I just like that there's a flayed baby in the corner.
They tell you enough about it to know that it's some sort of tied to Voldemort, but not exactly how it works. And I think that's okay. I feel like I need to reserve judgment, and I'll talk about this in the next episode more when I figure out what happened to Voldemort, because I don't know if he's dead or alive or a snake. Yeah. So I think that's when we'll come to that conclusion. So I'll save it for that episode. But Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining.
Mike, thank you so much.
Fun. Thanks for coming into the Multitudio. Hey, Brandon, thanks for recording us and stuff.
Thanks, Brandon.
And listeners, thanks for listening. If people want to find you, where can they go? What can
they
do?
Go listen to welcome to nightvale.com, or within the that's the website. You can listen to the website, though. You should have to click some buttons before it will say anything. You can listen to Welcome to Night Vale. You can listen to Within the Wires, my other fiction podcast, and then Joseph and I just started a new podcast about writing called Start With This. So check any of those out.
And you can listen to Jeffrey Cranor on Horse, episode 19, which is very good, where you renamed all the teams in the NBA to make things make more sense, and it was so much fun.
Please, more people go listen to this episode because I really want some movement to happen on this front.
It's your TED Talk, and it's great, and I love it.
I hope there's an NBA TED Talk one day and I get invited.
Please make it happen. Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you so much. And until next time, as they say in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, before they try to put skin back on a flayed baby, wizard on! If you're feeling left out that you're not going to be able to see all these panels that I'm on for LeakyCon, don't worry. You can get access to this audio if you join the bonus episode level tier of Patreon. When it's Harry Potter related, I always take the audio from conventions and put it up as bonus episodes so you can check out all of these things that I'm about to talk about in Dallas on the internet eventually as a bonus episode on Patreon. Potterless is created by Mike Schubert. It is hosted by Mike Schubert. It is edited by Mike Schubert. It is produced by Mike Schubert, as well as Vicky Garcia, Aaron Johnson, Jesse Horgan, Natalie Klobuchar, Klaus Lopu, Frank Chiodo, Marchismo, Samantha Rose, Juan Sanfilio, Abida Med, Rosemary Daj, Maria Lisa C. Keen, Romina Rivadeneira, Kumail Doc, Russell Dunk, Audra, Eleanor Curlin, Sydney Cawthorn, Rosa and Batamana, Nikita Power, Taylor Armstead, Ali Madsen, Amelia Krauss, Sean Montag, Sarah Nink, Ben Silver, Rachel Guthrie, Zachary Polito, Orchid Grower, Vivian the Owl, Takari Arant, Haley Hastings, Moster, Angelina Witherd, Rosemary Heise, Alex Bisholta, Brian Williams, Caitlin Sullivan, Grace Riggles, Raul Pineda, Ingen Odstatter, Mari Wynn, Alex Consolver, John Kotker, Noel Basile, Tao, Emily Tyrell, Robin Fernandez, Will Barrington, Liz Bigelow, Mariah Noah, Brandon Pickens, Sarah Enslin, Claire Spencer, Rory Collier, Gloria Gillum, Sarah and Patrick Donifant, Ali Cap 29, Hallie Bone, Veronica Bartova, Kevin Harnoy, Lotta Bartova, Noah Tracy Toya, Colleen, Jennifer Marklew, Friday J. Svedzin, Ivor Peterson, Naomi Guglielmo, Tyler Latshaw, Summer Rathel, Heather Fleischman, Vera Colotham, Carrie D. Bagson, Andrea Kroc, Elisa Grieven, Lynn Walker, Cameron Watkins, Justin Montero, Christine Saunders, Jacob Parrish, Toothless Walnut, Maya Gray, Mark Body, Polly Burge, Surujanthan Megupta, Netta Atabani, Tumnus Moran, Remy Fontaine, Matt Sfurley, Sarah Shecker, Nona VM, Zena Rosnowski, Colleen Mage, Harlan Haskins, Sheldarb, Noelia, Addie, Brian, Jenny Campione, Nikki Harris, Cara Hamilton, Dorcas, Courtney Hemwood, Kine, Amanda Alfred, Sabrina, Alicia McLaren, Kafir Shaltiel, Lindy Plackey, Martha Madueno, Benjamin Desmond, Skymart 6, Sarah Shetter, Peter Vostenak, Marta Morrison, Stephanie Magnuson, Justine Wade, Aaron Richter, CJ Ochoko, Eileen Gazesh, Violet Sullivan, Kat Yowell, Lindsay Towning, Fielding Lee, Keegan Curran, Miranda Manning, Gail Ann, Mr. Folk, Heather McMillan, Adam Bryan, Christina Walton, Maya, Zachary Davis, Kieran, Heaven, Callahan, Enderas, Christy, Lily Leader Williams, Wire Warrior 4976, Floor Sake, Sierra Scarsfjord, Georgia, Vilay Donner, Itzel Aime Ayala, Mitch Williams, Al Vega, Peter Wyckoff, Candy Kane, Skylar Lilly, Adele Ryan, Professor Threat, Kelsey Ulesian, Ellie Hoskovchova, Kelly Maynard, Luban Maleo, Akinwande, Lena Karen, Daniel Fulkerson, Rebecca Todd, Lee Lily, Elizabeth Christofferson, Abby, Lika Faccio, Michael David Yordi, Nice Earmuffs Potter, Did Your Mum Make Them For You, Cara Hoyer, Tiffany Cottrell, Kelly Attilio, Nadia Vansgard, Andrea, Courtney Telfer, Galactic Sparkle Cat, Carrie Crumpler, Jamie Kingston, Lissy, Camilo Garcia, Connie Bienkowski, Janet Noel Detilly, Mary Matille, Imo Sarah, Jennifer Wendt, Mylan Ilstad Johansson, Anastasia Blake, Jaden Allman, Nedry OS, Matt Barger, Riley Lane, Will Huser, Zephyr Lawrence, Artemis Peters, and Can't I Potter? Web design by Kelly Beckman, and the music is by Bettina Campamanes. If you want to find us on social media, you can at facebook.com/Potterless, twitter.com/PotterlessPod, instagram.com/PotterlessPodcast, or reddit.com/r/Potterless. For bonus content, you can head on over to patreon.com/Potterless. For information about the show, you can go to potterlesspodcast.com. And for merchandise, you can head to bit.ly/merch on. If you want to tell a friend about the show or leave a review online, that really does help. And until next time, as they say in the wizarding world of Harry Potter, wizard on!